Hey, my name is Peter Hollens. I am a dorky acapella nerd. I've been singing online for about 14 years, 10 million followers, a couple billion views, making dorky acapella music on the internet. I also advise and consult numerous creator economy companies. Currently consulting with 2 different AI companies that I really love. Spotter Studio, making creators have the opportunity to do content creation with confidence, and Trovio, helping protect creators' rights on the internet and get them paid to license out their video content. And I'm so excited to be here with you, gentlemen. Let's go.
I just want to say, Henrik, when I met Peter at this wonderful YouTube conference. And the thing that struck me was he is one of the few people who I have ever met that I felt actually matched my enthusiasm, not only for life in general, but for Gen AI specifically. And I was just like, you know what? I don't even know what's going to happen here, but we have to talk to this person because he's so excited that I just felt we're going to learn something interesting.
Meanwhile, I have gone deep on your YouTube channel. I think I've been jamming all morning.
I apologize.
No, it's great. It's amazing. Do you mind just kind of talking a little bit about how you got into it? I think definitely we want to kind of talk about music and AI, right? Because that obviously is your jam. But
Sure.
But I think it'll be super cool just to kind of hear when you first got introduced to it. And I definitely have like a gazillion questions after that.
Sure. Definitely need to say that I think everything that you might have said was true in terms of my enthusiasm, Jeremy, but I'm not sure about me teaching you two about AI and given how many people and the wealth and the intelligence of the individuals you speak to, because I've really thoroughly enjoyed listening to your podcast since I met Jeremy. My dorky creator musician experience truly starts in the shower singing. And I really wanted to drop my French class, and my mom finally heard me singing in the shower. She's like, okay, well, this kid's got a voice, so I need to convince him to join choir. So I never sang like around anyone else until I was forced to take choir in high school. She let me drop my French class. I figured out that mom does know best, because I was like, this is just going to get me beat up even more, Mom. This is great. Thanks a lot. And choir was like how I found myself, my voice, my identity. It later got me into college. I ended up getting a opera degree, pretty much like as a voice performance major at the University of Oregon. And along the way, to kind of balance the antiquated classical music and some of the professors there that really only saw life one way, I started an acapella group there that allowed me to get the affirmation from my peers that I desperately desired as a young, dorky, nerdy
I like that you
kid.
almost said deserved there, but let's live.
Good catch. And so I fell in love with the human voice and what male harmony does. The male acapella group there that I started was called On the Rocks, and we got to do a bunch of competitions and travel the United States singing. And I later fell in love with the recording studio just on our first time jumping into the recording engineering room, and so desperately wanted the recording engineer to move faster, because like we were paying out of pocket personally to get this first album done. And I was standing over him being like, this guy is moving so slow and it's $95 an hour and I cannot believe it. So all the money I'd saved to go to graduate school to become a choral director, I actually took out without my parents knowing and bought my own recording equipment. Fell in love with teaching myself how to do what I saw this recording engineer doing. And then I started recording other acapella groups around the nation. And that was like my first real business. And along the way, I ended up falling in love with another acapella nerd who was actually the premise for the movie Pitch Perfect. Her group at the University of Oregon was what Pitch Perfect, Mickey Rapkin, wrote his book about. And so we were like the Danny Sandy of acapella, which in 99, 2000 was totally not a cool thing. And even slightly it's slightly a little cooler because of like Glee and like the sing off and all the dorky stuff that's come with acapella since then, and what the group Pentatonics has done, especially for the Christmas genre. But I found myself on a TV show called The Sing Off, getting my group to go to it. And they were like, only if you come with us. And so I did, and I auditioned with them. And that was a really cool experience because I saw all these people delusional enough to think that they could make a living in music. And I was like, how do these people think they can do it? Because, you know, you think that you need the fat man in the suit telling you that you're good enough to make that work. And that experience was beautiful enough. And the people were so talented. And I was like, well, if they think they do it, I can do it. And I turned the mic on myself. And around that same time, I saw people starting to do this YouTube thing. And I was like, well, I taught myself recording engineering. I think I teach myself video editing. And so I started doing that, recording myself, releasing my music on there, and just happened to be like just stupidly dorky and entrepreneurial enough to like find myself a business in doing that. And along the way, the only way to really get your music up on iTunes was with this one company called Louder, which was the first time I kind of fell into having a network of CEOs who were just so incredibly giving with their time and teaching. And so I became an advisor and an investor in that company. And later, right around the same time, Jack Conte was starting up Patreon, and I was like the 6th creator on there. And I'm the most unfiltered person ever. So I would always provide so much feedback. And I got so excited, obviously, about Patreon and what that was to creators at the time who did not have any type of true passive income stream. And
but those people who don't know, what is Patreon?
Patreon is pretty much, right when it started, it was like a Kickstarter that never ends. It later become pretty much like the #1 membership site on the internet for creatives. It has a CEO who truly is a creator. So he lives and breathes and does and makes decisions for the creators and not necessarily for just the P&L, which is what most companies obviously focus on. And that was really great to be aligned to and want to invest in my time and my money and my energy. And those were my first couple of companies I started advising and investing in. And I never really had like a huge viral moment. I just kept on releasing content consistently week after week. And I found myself with over 10 million followers and a few billion views across all social media platforms doing dorky acapella music on the internet. I was like the first person to do boxes and boxes, and then like cloning myself to try to represent the music in which I was creating.
The boxes is such a nice look.
Yeah, it is until you like edit yourself for the 400th time and you're like, gosh, this face is not getting younger or prettier.
Speaking of getting younger and prettier, like, do you remember when you first stumbled into some LMs or Gen?
Yeah.
Gen
Oh my gosh. I was just wondering the same thing. Is like, when does AI kind of intersect with your path here, Peter?
Sure. I mean, I could double back, but truthfully, it came and provided me a bridge to like the deepest, darkest chasm that I ever faced. Even outside of me being stupid enough to sign a recording contract with one of the majors, I lost my voice due to a surgery that had nothing to do with my voice. The breathing tube, unfortunately, can take your singing voice away, which doesn't usually affect humans. And so I was about 2 years in on dealing with something called a stubborn granuloma, which is much worse than a node. Like a node is like what singers usually deal with, but that truly can come and go. A stubborn granuloma truly is stubborn. And so I had close to 10 W-2 employees across 3 different businesses and education and e-commerce. My like music accelerator that I was doing with my wife, who's also a professional singer. And then it all kind of like fell apart because like the backbone of the engine just kind of ceased to exist. First time I ever had to start letting go of people and kind of like retiring that. And so in the midst of not being able to truly sing for the first time since I was 14, and that was like everything to me, I was lucky enough to be living in a time where we have the total like human consciousness at our fingertips. And it was like the first day OpenAI came out with GPT-3. And at the time I was ideating on businesses. I was like, well, who am I if I can't sing? And so I was ideating on a bunch of different companies that were trying to get closer and closer to like the income stream between influencers and brands, but it felt icky. And I was like, well, why can't I get hired on by one of my companies that I advise or consult like full time? If I have such value, I know I can provide a 10x value. Like, why won't they give me like a legitimate salary? And no one was respecting creators. And so at the time I was trying to find the next business, and the large language model truly did recommend and help me to run with a company that I had founded called In-House Creators, and trying to like fundamentally solve innovators' dilemma at AI companies to place creators like myself that have created numerous 7-figure businesses horizontally across the company, both in terms of community, partnerships, go-to-market. And I feel like if a creator has done it before and they are wise enough to get over like the 3 main focuses of fame, money, and sex, which is what a lot of creators focus on early on in their career because they're too young to know why we have consciousness and why we're alive. Yet the large language model gave me the ability to not only find that business, but then actually be able to provide that value to truly any business that was willing to like lean in and hire me. Because if I didn't know how to do something, I'd be like, yeah, I got it, no worries. And then I would go and I'd either learn it or do it alongside numerous different large language models.
Can we just pause there real fast? And is there an example of a moment where you were asked to do something that the first answer, the unassisted Peter would say, no, I can't do that. And the assisted Peter says, yeah, I can definitely do that. Like what's,
oh my gosh,
just to give somebody like granularity to that image.
Yeah. I mean, for somebody who never had a job in their life and then was immediately brought into, VC world or unicorn type companies, and they're just throwing out acronyms left and right of OKRs and KPIs. And obviously you could look at that up on, from a definition standpoint, but if you were just writing down the entire context of every single conversation and what you're being asked to do alongside any of my jobs, gosh, I mean, okay. You're asking for specificity when my biggest weakness in the entire world, Jeremy, is memory. I would have to say I use it in everything. I use it in communicating to my wife in a more succinct way so that we can get over a fight. I use it in creating stories with my children and my beautifully neurodivergent autistic 6-year-old who I can't parent, but I get to do it alongside the different AI companies so that I can actually communicate to him in ways that are subconscious within the stories that he resonates to, with Henry the Hedgehog. And, I use it in everything. And which is why I'm so thankful now at this point, like every single time you get into a meeting and you have your like dorky note taker and people are like, what's that? I'm like, cool. I'm going to be able to not forget any of this and talk to it for the next 10 minutes afterwards and know exactly what we talked about, what the action items are, and how I can over deliver in the next 30 minutes. Oh, and then I'll schedule the email like an hour and a half in advance because they'll think that I put a lot more time and energy into it when it was really just like 5 minutes and then a couple quick filters and adjustments.
Yeah.
What are some of the...
That's great, by the way. That's great. That's a great
when did you start to use it actually for music? I guess you probably used it for text before audio to start with, right?
Yeah. I mean, like right over here, I have my Pro Tools session recording on the 2 different mics in which I have my large condenser and then the SMB that I'll send you guys later for this one. But like literally just up on the Chrome over here, because this is my like, I am in musician mode. I have Suno open, Udio open, Kits.ai, which is what I've been utilizing to model my voice across all of my different registers. I think prior to AI really coming in a pro consumer iteration, I was trying to do this and scale early on because truly recording 150 wave files of your voice in order to encapsulate, let's say like the Skyrim theme is extraordinarily tedious, cumbersome, and the thing that took me the most time. And as an entrepreneur, I wanted to automate every aspect of my production flow so that I could do the next cool thing. And so I had already previously recorded and created across every vowel and then voice consonant and like 6 different dynamics, my entire register of my voice and 2 mics and 2 amps. And so it's like completely playable. And so even back in 2015, my orchestrators and arrangers were playing my voice, but utilizing Contact, which is the closest I could get to like an AI modded version of my voice. Now I did that in an extraordinarily organic way, and not quite yet do I have the capability on the front end. Like if Kits.ai CEO would just freaking respond to me on LinkedIn, I would be the best case study you've ever had in your entire life. I don't know why he won't respond, but I think that we're like so close to being able to allow people like myself who have saved everything they've ever created to truly recreate, and then not only be able to like long-term monetize the brands that we've been able to, I don't know, I guess, create's another word again. But then also like every single idea I could actually put into my dorky genre and put it out there in a way that was authentic to my audience and provide them with the thing that they love most from me in a much faster way. Like it's not quite there yet, but I know it's coming.
On the authenticity, do you think that I've been super curious asking you about was, you obviously now like get people like myself who don't know how to sing or to make music, and I go on Suno and I make a reggae music that makes fun stuff, Jeremy Utley, and you like have a great giggle of that.
Yeah.
And then I talk to people who are musicians, and they make the argument sometimes, yeah, that's okay. That kind of the sound might sound nice, but people emotionally connect with the story, the trauma, the narrative of the singer. And so in the sense of like figuring out authenticity in a world where now people who are even not quote unquote musical like myself can create music, how do you think about that?
So as someone who has always felt like I had something to say, but I wasn't able to adequately put it on paper in a succinct way that could be digested through the pop world, which is pretty much the way that you're almost forced to nowadays. What has happened within like pretty much like the last model release of O1 Preview and the reasoning capabilities on the songwriting front, and the places that I've got to on a prompting side of like, this is what I want to say. Like I'll go on a walk, right? Like my entire like superpower now that I try to teach everyone is like, go on a walk. Think about everything you possibly can on the way there. Like let things come to you. And then on the way back, you just start recording everything you're thinking. And in this capacity, this has really helped me grab at least like a half dozen true like gems of this is something that I want to leave to the world if I pass. And then the only way I've been able to get that into a song form that I'm proud of is by begging and pleading with the AI to like dig deeper into my why. Why do I feel this? Why do I want to say this? Ask me every single question that you could possibly think of as my like co-songwriter in this Nashville room. And usually when I finally get down to like the spark of that, which like the one I recently did with my 6-year-old, who, like I said, is like just the most unique individual ever. He was forcing me to run down these dunes on the Oregon coast. And I have a hip replacement. I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. And the rare moment in which he like looked me in my eyes, which doesn't happen very much. And he said, Dad, I really want you to do this. And I was just like, oh, I'm doing this. I can't not do this now. And I tried to encapsulate that moment and just how much fun I had those 5 minutes after that and being a child alongside him in this song. And the large language model was able to like coerce that out of me so that the nuance and specificity, to your point, is in the song. And I'm like, this is so close. And this is already so close. And then I was able to, within the confines of the new iterations of Udio and Suno, encapsulate a lot of my favorite singers, like descriptions of their music. And then after like 50 different iterations, because you kind of have to just like, it's like quantity, it's not quality yet. Find the ones that work and then like double down and then create another remix and another remix. And then you keep adjusting.
Peter, have you told O1 or whatever LLM you're using in that instance what good looks like? Because I'm drawn to this statement. You said the LLM coerced it out of me. And my question is, have you told it what to coerce, or is it drawing on its training data? How is it pushing you? And even this statement about ask me why as my co-writer in the Nashville studio, what context does it have on what it takes to be a good co-writer?
Yeah, I mean, I do find the longer the chat window to be and the more feedback I give about what I do like and what I don't like, that we get closer and closer to the heart of the matter. In terms of something that I think is actually worth then taking to my songwriter and being like, please, Anna, save me. Cause she's the real gem.
And do you have like a chat per song, or does all that context, say song 1, does all that context, then when you come to song number 2, you're going, I want to stay in this conversation because this conversation has all of this history. Then now I'm starting not at 0, I'm starting at 100. I'm trying to get to 1 million or whatever.
I think I always utilize the same chat window, but then at some point a new model will come along and I can't take that entire thing over there. And so I have to like copy and paste it in. And then I'm sure there's like some lost synapses across the specific chat that I was having.
No, I asked that very deliberately. I mean, just to give like a different example, but hopefully helping our audience think about this conversational opportunity. I got advanced voice mode ideogram coach. And so I basically provided all of my Enneagram information and said to my coach, knowing what you know about my type and my strengths and motivators and weaknesses, I want to do a daily debrief with you where you ask me questions and then help me craft experiments. And then importantly for me, and I bet for you too, Peter, this would be helpful, I want you to hold me accountable to the experiments because I know that I'm likely to forget. So I want you to ask me about the stuff that we've agreed to. And for like 2 weeks, it was this incredible conversation, like truly remarkable. And I got to the point I was excited. Like there's several podcasts I love. And there was one day where a new pod dropped and I actually didn't listen to it and stayed in my voice chat because I was so excited about continuing this conversation. So it was rich. And then I didn't know this, but once you use text as input in a voice conversation, the model reverts back to 4.0 and you can't get it back to advanced voice mode. And I honestly, like to say, I don't want to be dramatic. It's not like somebody died or something. It took me days to try to summon the activation energy to restart a new conversation with a new coach. It was like a really weird experience for me. So we could talk about that, but I ended up basically getting that old coach to craft instructions for a new voice coach that I had to read it because you can't load it in via text or else it reverts to the model, right? So I actually had the instructions from my old coach on the screen and I was verbally reading it to a new model because I wanted to stay in that voice only mode. But anyway, to me, this question of what context does a particular conversation have actually matters a lot. And maybe they'll extend memory at some points where it really is across conversations.
Yeah.
But right now, like you literally have this one conversation that has, when you start leaning on it, right, as a co-writer of songs, it's like, dude, I don't want to start that over again. Like this is that conversation. And so anyway, I wondered how practically, like if you're going on a walk every day, are you literally opening the same chat? And then how reliable do you find it? That's kind of where my mind's at.
Yeah. I personally like it to be a one-sided conversation just due to the fact that my mind works even faster than I can verbally say. And so I wouldn't want to have to wait. And then I can't wait till it allows you the opportunity not to get interrupted by it. Cause then for me, I'm like, oh, what am I? No, wait, stop talking.
Dude, just tell it. Just tell it. Okay. This is a huge unlock. You ready for this?
I'm totally ready.
I want you to only respond with the word okay, unless I say otherwise.
Okay.
See what you did there.
I'm programmed.
It's an unlock, dude. I kid you not, because now all of a sudden, instead of thinking that it needs to fill the space, it just says, okay, and ball's back in your court.
But the thing is that I'm not quite sure even how much it matters what it says back to us, right? You know, like I was playing with this experiment yesterday where I ask it, from all of our interaction, what is the one thing you can tell me about myself that I do not know about myself?
I did that as well.
I think that
might be making its way around this.
Yeah, it's like a Reddit thing. I started Reddit. Just to finish that point, like obviously you do it on Claude, and then it says basically, I don't know much about you. And the truth of the matter is, of course, that ChatGPT actually don't know much about you. It only knows a little bit that it's stored in memory and knows a little bit of what you put in custom instructions. It actually don't have like a memory bank based on these conversations. And so what it says to you is something that you kind of would like it to say. I think it's called the Barnum.
It's like a horoscope, kind of.
Like the Barnum effect, right? You know, like that. Yeah, like it just says, you know, hey, what I really like about you is that you're really good at being able to use both your left and your brain. And, you know, everybody goes like, yeah, like spoon me more of that, you know.
Well, you know, the useful iteration, Henrik, is to say, tell me something that you think I don't want to hear.
But I think with all these things, the point is that it's a mirror in many ways, more necessarily like an oracle, right? Like that it doesn't necessarily say anything to you that you wouldn't be able to come up with otherwise, but it just makes you have a reaction to what you hear. And that's the interesting part. And so I think maybe when we talk about making music, it doesn't take away soulfulness that you use AI to dig deeper, because what you're really using is just to have a conversation partner that just allows you to kind of scrape, you know, parts of the onion off. And so you get into kind of what is the story that you'd like to tell.
Can I say one thing about this authenticity point that I didn't want to forget when y'all were talking about that earlier? I was just with a CEO of a training company that's using AI in really cool ways. And there was this question that came up among the audience about what is generative AI doing to our creativity? And this wonderful guy in Texas had told about how he used it to write a wedding speech that was really touching. And then the question, of course, when people found out was, is it really your speech? Is it not? What is it doing to your creativity? All this stuff. But this CEO of this training company said, you know what I did? He said, I've been married for about 20 years and I worked with Suno to craft my wife a song that's based on a bunch of our memories and experiences. And it was really touching. It actually brought her to tears. And to me, what I found myself saying to this group is, take that example that the CEO just gave. You know, what if I had told you that he hired a personal songwriter, had the songwriter interview him about his relationship with his wife of 20 years, and then he hired a band and he gave artistic direction to a band to record a song in her favorite style? Would you say that uncreative jerk? I don't think you would, right? I think you'd say that's wildly creative. The fact that prior to Suno, he'd never thought about hiring a songwriter and hiring a band to write his wife a deeply bespoke and personal song doesn't mean that the LLMs are somehow making us less creative. They're expanding our capacity. And I would ask you all this question about authenticity. Is it inauthentic? I think it's actually, I mean, my point of view is it's deeply authentic. He crafted a song that was really moving to his wife. He couldn't have done it before. So I think there's a lot of these words that their definitions are evolving as the tool set that we have access to is expanding.
And unfortunately, only to certain demographics and not others. I mean, I have a very distinct emotion that's a total polar opposites. That first and foremost, to be on the musician-only side, like, ouch to some of the people that, you know, in other cases would be paid for that, and how immensely I wish each and every single creative would lean in with every fabric of their being in order to be able to then provide as much creativity, human emotion, and potential by using these things. And I love that example for so many reasons, because I want everyone to be able to experience music. And I think in that way, that's the only thing that can get us as close to being like united as one in a spiritual sense as possible. Whether or not you're utilizing AI to do it or not, if I could give anything to like my entire creative class, it would be just to like release from the disposition of thinking that AI is going to stop you from grabbing the human realistic like aspect of yourself. It's almost as if like there's a lot of things being drawn forward from even like a decade ago where it's like, well, I can't create that because that person already created it. And so I've spent so much time and energy telling people like, it's uniquely different because you created it, even if you created the exact same thing because it came through your mind, your voice. It's the same thing. We're reliving it across like a different iteration now. And it's really scary because it is so incredibly powerful. And if these individuals who are so creative and are leading the world with looking outside the box don't truly utilize AI to gravitate towards every single idea that they have, then like they're losing the opportunity to push us forward with an 1000x multiple. And I hope and pray that words from people much more intelligent than me would inspire people to take a breath, look outside themselves if they truly are not leaning in because of something that they heard or something that they thought one of their friends would think of them if they were to use it, and to jump in all abandoned, right?
And where are you on I mean, like, there seem to be the two arguments that you hear mostly from creatives, right? One is that basically people shouldn't use it because it's taking a human's job, which, you know, in many ways, genie's out of the bottle. So even if they were to be right, it seemed to be tough to undo that. And I agree with you. Like,
impossible, but yeah.
I think, you know, we had this amazing woman called Jenny on the podcast the other day, and she was talking about, it's not about making things more efficient. It's about doing things that was impossible for you to do prior, right? The second argument that you often hear is this notion, yes, but these models are built on basically stolen content. And so there is a lack of morality in even kind of engaging with it, you know, playing with bootleggers.
Honestly, to that point, there's stuff even like coming out now. A company that I just started advising last month, pushing back against the like unethically scraped, right? Like I can go to a couple sites and type in my own YouTube channel and be like, this model has been trained with 37 of your videos. And I'm like, you took 37 of my dorky acapella videos and made that? First and foremost, cool. Secondly, can I have some money? And so like this one company called Trovio is creating like a do not scrape register. And then simultaneously, those that do lean in have the opportunity to then license their content and get paid stupidly handsomely for all of their time and energy and work that they've put into these videos, and then forcing that relationship with each and every single one of those AI companies that they do business with, that they cannot scrape, they cannot use the identity of these individuals. And then we also get paid. And that's a necessity. And I think it has to have a capitalistic way of going about doing the right thing, because yes, pretty much every YouTube video online could have been, and probably already has been, scraped for every morsel of its worth. But some companies, like the Adobes of the world, are supposedly doing it in a ethically trained, correct way. A lot of smaller ones that I'm now hearing of because of this company I'm advising are trying to do similar things. And who knows if regulatory ever catches up, or if copywriting is even the right word to use anymore, because of how fastly we're pushing through any semblance of what copyright used to be.
And when you say all these things, where are you on the kind of what sometimes is the counter argument of, yes, these models have been trained, but most music is inspired. And obviously, when you sit down pre-AI tools and was making something, you may or may not have been inspired by something you've heard past without being able to do contribution.
Sure. I mean, we all know that the Bachs and Beethovens of the world all learn from one another. And that's what makes humans human. I think that's why we have the consciousness and we are where we are in the food chain, because we have always learned from one another. And so it's a catch-22 to say that you're not allowed to, within a different tool set, do the same thing. And truthfully, like, one of the people that really inspired me to start on YouTube, his name was Mike Tompkins. He was starting to do the same box and box thing. And he, similar to me, has really taken a step back and been burnt out. I finally got to show him some of the stuff that I was doing with Udio and Suno, and in truly encapsulating this dorky acapella thing that, like, only him and I really know because of making hundreds of these types of videos. And I showed it to him because in the beginning, we're like competitors, and now we're like best friends. His kid's name Dash. My first kid's name is Ash. And I'm like, well, you copied me this time. And anyway, and I showed it to him, and he, I think for the first time in years, he was like, will you please send me like looms of how you're doing that? Like, that makes me want to create music again. And the fact that AI can reignite somebody's passion that had been truly stamped out by just how incredibly daunting being a long-term creator is, because it's almost impossible. You always reach a peak that you'll never make to again. And then just hearing that in his voice, of like, oh my gosh, send that to me. How did that happen? How did I just get inspired by music that was 100% created by AI, you know?
Wow.
There's something
That's
there.
cool.
And obviously we're so in like the fractions of like the first inning of where we're going with this. And I absolutely truly believe I want to be able to help ignite those types of feelings in the hearts and minds of as many creators as possible, because if those are the people that truly lean in, then that's how we can get to it, the next renaissance. And I love your example of the husband that was able to create a song for his wife, and I want that to be a thing, but I much more want the individuals who can't breathe without creating on a daily basis, or they become a shell of a human. I need them to lean in.
You know, I love this example of sharing your workflow, because with someone, you call them a competitor, you know, Asher or whatever, you know, it's like, who knows, competitor, lover, etc., co-conspirer. But to me, there's something really powerful. I mean, even, you know, as Jenny mentioned to me and Henrik, the power of a GPT is that it's shareable. It's knowledge that's codified that now anybody can access. And I think, you know, Diara, I don't know, Peter, if you've heard our conversation with Diara, who's this amazing fashion entrepreneur. But one of the things she does is she's got a robust process for sharing via Loom videos with her team, everything she's doing, because she said she's got abilities now that she's never had before. She said, I don't want to be leveling up in private if I'm asking them to level up. I've got to be leveling up publicly, right? And 100%. So to me, there's something about, I think, I just wanted to put a fine point on it. The responsibility, those of us who are maybe leaning forward and experiencing renewed invigoration, et cetera, that we have to share with people who would benefit, right? I think it's non-trivial that you reached out to Mike and said, you got to see what I'm doing. And I think right now there may be some hoarding, you know, people, I could imagine a scenario where Peter goes, dude, I can't let Mike know because the lead is so great, you know. And I think there's some kind of you could call it a moral imperative perhaps, What does it look like to think about who is the person, if you've built a hack, if you've built something that's reinvigorated you, who is the person who you need to share with? I think is a really important question for people to ask.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm so thankful that early on in my YouTube career, when I did believe, due to the way that the music industry subconsciously teaches everyone about competition and this award, and there's only this Billboard rank, and there's only one person that can be number one. Early on, I was taught, thankfully, with some collaborations with artists that were much bigger and had a larger distribution than me, and how lovely they were and how they treated me as a peer and not as a competitor. I learned that in 2012. I was like smacked in the face with Lindsey Sterling, who was this amazing electronic violinist on our first collaboration. I'm like, this is what this is about. I don't need to pretend like I'm something I'm not. I get to help. And then henceforth, I'd moved through my career and doing collaborations where I did all the work, I put in all the money, and I would still split like everything 50-50 on the first penny, because I wanted the entire relationship to be about knowledge sharing and being in this together, because it is such an isolating thing being a creator. And so absolutely, I'm all about sharing. I'm all about trying to teach every single person the newest hack and the newest trick. Because I mean, being at the forefront of technology right now is the most, I mean, honestly, it's one of the things that that's keeping me out of singing into the microphone, because I'm just so excited about it. And I feel like there's so much value to provide that education, even on like a close relationship basis. Like my wife was the hardest person to win over, and I'm finally getting her to utilize it. And she's like, this was so great. I just told them the songs that I was creating. That's because she produces shows, and she's like, and then it gives me the entire list. And then I like ask it some more questions, and I ask it to critique itself like you told me. And I'm like, yes, this is everything I wanted.
Yes.
No, don't use it
to
argue with me on text. Okay. That's only for me. Right? I won't tell you that part.
What is one of the things that you've done that you couldn't do before that was kind of like a massive, like, wow, I can do this now? And you're using kind of like pretty technical term about like how you were sampling your voice in different registers and stuff like that, which I thought I understood, but not really. But
sure.
Are there kind of areas like that or elements like that where you've done stuff where you're now Acapella can really become kind of like a new thing because I can do X?
I do truly believe that the human voice will be the last thing from a genre perspective. Acapella, to be able to actually at least convince somebody as jaded and anal retentive in the recording studio as me, that it's good enough. I know we'll get there. And I'm just constantly trying to stay at the forefront of it. But like, I could send you like me singing the newest like pop song based upon me throwing in like 26 really top quality iterations of my voice on a solo, and then just put in like the newest song, and then I send it to you and you're like, oh, I love that song. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm like, I didn't sing it. It could convince some people. My vocal editor, who intimately heard my voice for thousands of hours, was convinced on like the first thing I sent him, and I was like, oh my God, we're there, but we're not, because it's
and then
getting
what
close.
About, like I was never a very good coder, right? I took some classes, but now I can kind of do enough Python, specifically now when new tools like Replit allow me to just explain what I want to do in English, and then start to code. And when it comes with errors, at least I know enough of like what it looks like to go in.
And Cursor and Replit and Claude's. Yep.
If I have always wanted to sing and am not very talented in that area, but I guess have stories, where would I go to kind of start my journey as becoming kind of like a musical artist?
A troubadour, I think is the word you're looking for, Henrik, a troubadour.
I mean, the musical iteration of Descript and 11 Labs is called Kits.ai, and it is the best pro-consumer iteration of that. I would absolutely put that in my like tech stack to allow someone like yourself to sing just about anything, and because it can grab your tone, your frequency, your resonance, and then you can tell it to like then sing this song and that song. You have to provide it with a certain amount of context to be able to do a good enough job. I would be happy enough to share my loom that I shared with Mike to teach you how to do that if you really want to, because every human does truly have the ability to sing. Some, just like any type of muscle, have a better DNA ability to be a little better than others, but it is absolutely trainable.
I mean, I would really like that, and obviously, if you're up for it, I'm happy to share it with the people listening too. Because I have always wanted to practice. I downloaded some of the apps that are kind of like teaching you to sing. And
Yeah.
I mean, I spent 8 years of MTV, so I definitely looked at that. And I think I'm past what we should say, like money, sex, and fame. You know, like I think I'm past that.
Yeah,
right now.
I don't mean to like throw, but I mean, when you're young, it's like, that's kind of like, unfortunately, the subconscious North Star that we get programmed into. So, I do wish that we could somehow, as a species, get to some fabric of like figuring that out a lot earlier, so that we don't start chasing why we are. Do you guys, okay, because we're about on the same age. Do you guys think that there's some type of correlation between a midlife crisis and then redefining why we have consciousness versus those three things? Because I do believe that there's something there. And I hope and I pray that being able to distill every idea that we ever have, which is why I think journaling, but in a transcribing form, is the new superpower of our age. Because the more you're able to take all your ideas and put it out there that come to you, I think the more you're going to quickly be able to push back against everything that we have been programmed through TV and book and everything. Because I feel like it's so much more than what we have been told life is, right? And as soon as we get to the point where like perhaps capitalistic intentions isn't everything, and maybe we're no longer pushing for the next $1 million or just to pay for your rent and insurance, but like we all get some type of aspect of energy or productivity to like, I don't know. Sorry, I'll digress. You guys are so much smarter than me. I'd rather like ask you guys questions to pontificate about like what life is about.
That's on your show, Peter. That's your podcast. You don't get to ask the questions here.
You guys been able to spoke to so many experts. Oh, and you keep on bringing up Jenny. I've listened to that one 3 times now. That's such a great podcast. If you guys haven't listened to that one, go listen to Jenny. She's amazing.
Stop this show right now, as interesting as Peter is, and go listen to Jenny.
Yeah, and then come back.
I wanted to ask you, Peter, if you were going to give somebody instructions in journaling in a transcription form, if somebody said to you, what do you mean? You talk about going on a walk with AI, you talk about journaling in a transcribing form. What is your kind of, call it, how-to beginner's guide to journaling in this way?
Yeah. My favorite app for grabbing that and then transcribing it currently is Super Whisper. You could use any type of voice memo app on your phone. But I think that you can only get the most out of your thoughts when you're in motion. I think doing it on a walk is the easiest. You're still in breath. You're connected to the earth. You're in a surroundings that are always changing. And so then your brain starts to go. And so I think allowing yourself to have 5 minutes of nothing. You don't listen to a podcast. You don't walk with anyone else. You just live and breathe in that walk, and then breathe, and then take out your phone and start transcribing and just speaking out into existence everything you're thinking.
Wait, so step 1,
yes,
get in motion.
Yes, absolutely.
Step 2, do nothing for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Other than walk. Then step 3, you open Super Whisper or whatever your app of choice is. And for the kindergarten lesson, what's step 3?
Step 3 is to start talking out, like perhaps for that day, like you have something on your mind, what you want to get done, what you want to get accomplished. I'm a little more strange, and I like to go to immediate, like macro level, like what am I going to write a book about? What's my next TED Talks? How do I get this thing done for this company that I'm consulting in the easiest, fastest way? And sometimes I'll already start prompting in my transcription. Thus, when I input it directly into a large language model, it'll already know my goals. But I'll just start talking out loud and letting my thoughts go without judging myself, which is truly like the most difficult.
Okay, so let's do like a double click on that point. Again, beginner's guide to how to journal in transcription form. Peter said something very important just now. Don't judge. How does judgment manifest, and how do you fight it?
Oh gosh, how does it manifest? It manifests by being a human and just all of the baggage that you bring into the day. I am not some spiritual guru. All I know is if I let my stream of consciousness exist without me identifying all the things that are wrong with me or all the things that I'm worried about, then the value for that walk and that day can be extraordinary. I think a lot of the things that people get into mentally prior to meditation is extraordinarily valuable in this exact example. I think you can kind of get into a meditative state if you're out on a walk, especially in nature and not necessarily amongst other humans. It's a lot easier to not be judgmental if you don't see another human. It's something about looking at another human's face makes me personally.
But I think part of what you're saying is don't judge the thoughts as they come, or when you're kind of going through the stream of consciousness, anything is on limits, nothing's off limits. Don't be self-conscious or self-critical.
What would you write in your own diary? Because I feel like that in and of itself is the most powerful thing. If you're able to provide millions and millions of characters of context over days, weeks, months, years that you can always then talk to, who are the people that are toxic in my life? What are the ideas that I've had that I haven't acted on yet? I mean, like, so much value lies within just talking out all of your ideas. And I just think so much more of humanity can be gained by doing so. So yeah, sorry, I'm ADHD, obviously.
No, that's great. So you go on the walk, let's say, and you take 10 minutes. What happens next in the, call it, workflow?
Yeah. So if you're using Super Whisper, then you press the transcribe button. You finish your thought, and then it transcribes it out. I then take that and copy that out directly into my large language model of choice. Depending upon what got the most recent update is usually the first one I go to, but then I'll always take it to a second. Usually my top 3 are, whatever iteration of OpenAI that you're paying for, Anthropic's iteration, which I hope the new Opus comes out soon, and then Gemini. Because as soon as we haven't talked about Notebook LM yet, but it's like just so awesome. I will absolutely throw it in there. I even just yesterday took the entirety of my main business, entire bank account transactions in there, and then just listened to them talk for 45 minutes about my business.
That's so good.
You can give it everything. Anyway,
what is this guy spending money on? I know, right? I mean, that's so funny.
But seriously though.
Okay, but importantly, you said, I just want to make sure that there's kind of a very clear protocol for somebody who's listening, because I happen to agree with you. This is probably the most important and most powerful thing someone can do. So absolutely. I want your thoughts. So you press transcribe, you copy it into your LLM of choice, or even across, and then label it
that day, right? So that hypothetically, if we go forward a year and there is something else extraordinarily amazing, a product, something that you can go through and you can grab all of the context in which you provided, right? I love the idea of having a secondary app so that it's truly backed up, because if it's only in one place, it's not backed up. Creatives, don't think you're ever backing up by having it one place. That's not called backing up. You need to double back.
Importantly, by specifying that you're labeling it with the date, you're not loading this kind of diary into one single meta, call it diary conversation, where every day you're adding it. You're creating a new conversation each day.
I am. I have gone back and then tried to do numerous, and then my ADHD picks on, and I keep on telling myself, well, I'll get back to it when I have time to add it all in.
So once you upload it to your LLM of choice, do you ask it questions? Or
of course. I start talking to myself. I'm like, here's all the ideas in which I had on my walk today. Please tell me the things that stood out the most. What are the action items that I discussed? Are there specific people I need to reach out to? I go through the whole thing. I truly do not have a template yet, because I've only truly been embracing this probably the last 3 months. But it's been so beneficial. It's like a combination between getting to the place you are right before you would try to meditate, or when we're stuck on a play and the Wi-Fi doesn't work and you're in that brown noise and you start just oh my gosh, I know everything I want to talk about now. It's like you want to get there, and then you just want to just open up and talk without any premeditated thought, and let that stream of consciousness be grabbed, and then you later talk to yourself, which is the most awesome thing ever. Come on, people, if you're not doing this.
But when you say you talk to yourself, to be clear, you're talking to an LLM, you're talking to your own transcribed, diarized reflections via a conversation with ChatGPT, Claude. When you say talk to yourself, just to be clear, you're not saying, so Peter, what do I think? You're typing in what stood out from this conversation, right? That's what you mean by talking to yourself. So you're talking to your diary, you could say.
Yeah, I think that's a simplistic way of saying it. And how fun is that? If you could create a product like that actually looked and felt like a an Apple or a Tesla, and like it'd be a game over. That's a trillions of dollar idea. Go make that. And put me on as an advisor, someone. Thank you so much.
You got it. You got it. 1%. You got it. Henrik, I mean, this conversation could go easily another hour. I think, Peter's already said that he wants to invite us onto his show to talk about all of his questions.
We'll take that anytime. Peter, thank you so much. I mean, if you don't mind sharing that loom with everything else with me, then I'll very much take it. And then I might send back when I,
my only request, Henrik, is that your first troubadouring be a spoof Jeremy song. So I want to hear your singing voice spoofing me, please. And then you can make your wife like a love song, whatever. Just like knock off the cobwebs.
Jeremy, let's just do a recap. Thoughts after talking to Peter.
I mean, I love Peter. What an incredible, enthusiastic experimenter, creator. He's my people for sure. Couple of things that I wanted to highlight. I mentioned even in the conversation, but just put a fine point on them. One is the imperative to share with others. I think right now, whoever's on the leading edge, like probably if you're listening to this show, you're trying more than your peers in whatever your field is. Take one action item, take one homework assignment from the professor here. Share something that you're doing with someone like you who is probably 1 or 2 steps behind you. I think that's, to me, his story about sharing with Mike was super cool. That's one thing. Second thing, obviously, the transcription journaling, kind of protocol that we went through, I thought was great. I loved his emphasis on not judging or fighting judgment. And then I love his emphasis on actually talking to your diary through an LLM. I think it's super cool. I think, to me, it's something that I've been experimenting with and playing with it in a bunch of different ways, as I mentioned. And I loved anybody who hasn't tried something like that, just go through his steps real quick. I can recap them real quickly as well. 1, get in motion. 2, do nothing for 5 minutes while you're walking. 3, start talking, stream of consciousness about your to-dos, goals. It can get to big ideas, etc. 4, don't judge no matter what, just keep talking without kind of criticizing it. 5, press transcribe on the app, whatever it happens to be. 6, copy that transcription into 1 or 2 or 3 LLMs. And then 7, talk to that diary entry and ask follow-up questions. I think if anybody will take that seriously, they'll be amazed at what happens when they let themselves think out loud. Henrik, the word you've used before that I really like is babble. He just gave a prescription for babbling, basically. What stood out to you?
I was very kind of, again, grabbed by this idea that we're going to live in a time where people like myself who didn't know how to code can now code enough to do a website or a service or a tool. And people I can't really paint, but I can describe something I'd like. And I think what I learned out of this, and which I got real appetite on, was I've always wanted to make music and I have 0 talent. But I do have ideas of stories that I'd like to tell and that I'd like to put to music. And I think he made this point, which I think was a point of permission, which was, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, or if it sounds like something that somebody else have done. What is important is that I got to do it for me. And so I'm kind of just blown away by this kind of time that we are going to live in and that we already are starting to live in, which is, if you'd like to do anything creative, if you have something to express, even for self-discovery, you now don't have an excuse anymore. You can make an app if you want to make an app. You can make a song if you want to make a song. You can write a poem if you want to make a poem. And in interaction with the LLM, you can kind of notch yourself through 50 iteration close to something which should be good enough for you, but honestly might actually also be really meaningful to somebody who's listening. And that is just incredible.
When you say you've always wanted to sing, I just have a question for you. Where does that come from? Do you have any sense?
I don't know. I mean, I did spend 8 years of my career at MTV, and this was the time we were playing music videos. And so I will admit that when I walk down the streets of the Lower East Side on Manhattan, and it's warm and you can see kind of the heat coming out from the asphalt, and I go out in the middle of the street and I sing a song that I like, I do have this inhibition that if I look back, the dancers will come up from behind the cars and we are in the middle of a music video. So I don't know. I mean, like, I've just always loved music, but maybe because it came through MTV in a very poppy way, right? Like not in an elegant that I understand, like the B side of a cool kind of indie. I just always just loved what's on the charts, specifically boy bands. Full disclosure,
dude.
And so yeah, like it's not like it's something like that's cool or that I'm proud about. It's just something that I've always like been sitting there and jamming on.
I love it. I love it. Maybe start there. Just start recording covers of your favorite NSYNC songs or favorite Backstreet Boys songs. That's all you have to do.
That is a very, very tempting thing.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with someone. Write us a review, leave a recommendation, drop us a line and let us know who else like Peter we should be talking to. Until next time.
Thanks so much. See you.